Good morning, folks. Welcome to the Higher Education and House Education Finance Joint Hearing. As people are getting settled, we want to dive right in because we have a lot of great things to discuss today. I'd like to welcome our House Higher Education members to Capitol 120 and thank Chair Pulowski for being the driving force behind this discussion and reconnecting our secondary and higher education institutions around career and technical education. I think we have a very informative agenda set up today to help lay the groundwork for our policy and finance decisions. Chair Pulowski, do you have a few opening comments?
My opening comment would go back to October of 2019, October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, when we had a hearing during the Winona mini session at the Tech College. At the Tech College, it was proposed that we reinvent having licensure and certification for what we once called shop teachers. Now it started at Winona State. You're going to see both Winona State and the Tech College present the 2+2 program, and then we're going to expand it. So this is all about one statement. Every high school senior in Minnesota should have the option of graduating, not just with a diploma, but with an employable skill set. And remember, I said option. That's what the intent of the hearing is. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. And with that, our first presentation is going to be from our nonpartisan staff for a brief historical overview of career and technical education here in Minnesota. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Madam Chair and members, my name is Nathan Hopkins. I'm a nonpartisan legislative analyst with House Research. I staff the Higher Education Committee. There's a memo in everyone's packets about the history of vocational technical education in Minnesota that I prepared. That goes into a little more detail, but right now I'm just going to sort of summarize that for the committee and give you some historical context for understanding the history of vocational ed in Minnesota. So earliest beginnings, in 1917, the federal government started to give a lot of money to states for vocational education, and the Minnesota legislature designated the high school board, which was a predecessor to the Department of Education, as the Minnesota Vocational Board, which made it the state entity eligible to accept those federal funds. So that's sort of the beginning of us seeing vocational education being housed in the K through 12 kind of education world. During World War II, there was also a lot of federal government money to ramp up production for the war production training. So there was some federal money that came through there, and when that program wrapped up, a lot of the surplus equipment from the war training program in World War II was ordered transferred to school districts for disposition. The real beginning, though, of the story of vocational technical education in Minnesota comes in 1945. In the wake of World War II, the GI Bill, the modernizing economy, that's when the Minnesota legislature passed a law establishing area vocational technical schools, or area vocational technical institutes, as they came to be called, AVTIs. AVTIs would not grant any degrees. They were meant to prepare adults for jobs in agriculture, home economics, health, office trades, and technical occupations. They were intended to be post-secondary in nature. Both high school graduates and non-graduates could enroll, but students were persuaded to complete their high school education prior to enrollment. AVTIs would be free to any Minnesota residents under 21 who had graduated from high school, and non-graduates over 16 could also attend free of charge, but they would be limited to the AVTI within their local school district. So local school districts would operate these AVTIs that would become the hub for vocational education in Minnesota for the next several decades. The employees of AVTIs would be school district employees. In the 1960s to the 1980s, there was a lot of increased federal funding for vocational education that came into Minnesota. Some of the most important were the Vocational Education Act of 1963, which allowed state vocational boards to use those federal funds to construct new schools. So you see a real proliferation in AVTIs in Minnesota during that period, the 1960s to the 1970s. A lot of new AVTIs are being built using these federal funds. But AVTIs are expensive to build and run. It's more than a chalkboard and chalk and desks. There's a lot of equipment involved. So you see school districts starting to come together, and you see the regionalization of AVTIs. Intermediate school districts in the late 1960s started in order to accomplish the operation of AVTIs. In 1967, the legislature authorized an intermediate school district for Hennepin County. And in 1969, there was one for Ramsey and Washington counties, as well as Dakota County. In the 1970s, after this proliferation of AVTIs throughout Minnesota, you started to see some concerns arise about redundancies, both between AVTIs and community colleges, and also among the various AVTIs. There were a lot of them now, and a lot of them had programmatic overlaps. So in 1967, the legislature established the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, which had the responsibility for comprehensive planning regarding post-secondary education in the state. And among the early recommendations from the Higher Education Coordinating Commission in 1971 was that the legislature, they recommended a pause on authorizing new AVTIs. They said until such time as greater need and feasibility becomes evident. And they also recommended that community colleges and AVTIs that were in close proximity assess the possibility of merger. So in the 1960s, the story was the proliferation and growth of AVTIs throughout the state. And then in the subsequent decades, what you start to see is more regionalization, more consolidation, and more systematization of AVTIs. You start to see them join together and coalesce in order to sort of address some of that overlap and some of those redundancies that arose because of the earlier proliferation. In addition, AVTIs were very expensive. So we saw some policy changes in the mid-1970s. Vocational education was changed from funding on a reimbursement basis based on past expenditures to a current funding basis. So AVTIs would have to submit budgets for future years, the way that colleges and post-secondary institutions in Minnesota do now. Tuition laws were also changed in the 1970s. In 1977, the legislature amended state statute to allow AVTIs to charge tuition to adult vocational students. And previously, it was supposed to be tuition-free for Minnesota residents under 21 years of age. The idea being there that with post-secondary education, both the student and the state are benefiting from that, so there's a shared responsibility model. In the 1980s and 1990s, you started to see more consolidation of AVTIs. There were 33 AVTIs across Minnesota in the early 1980s, and enrollment had increased dramatically. Between 1972 and 1982, average daily membership at AVTIs more than doubled, growing from 16,256 students to 34,977 students. And the majority of AVTI's revenues came from state appropriations, despite that change to the tuition law. And that amount of state funding had more than tripled from the early 1970s to the early 1980s. So you had more concerns about redundancies and also the expense involved in running AVTIs to the states. So because of this extreme expense and because of the concerns about programmatic duplication and a projection of substantial enrollment declines in the early 1980s, caveat there, you didn't actually see a lot of enrollment declines in technical education, in those AVTIs in the 1980s. Enrollment remained rather stable and actually experienced modest growth in the 1980s. But nevertheless, with that sort of an outlook, the legislature made a few reforms to the governance of the AVTIs. In 1983, the legislature established a vocational technical education board, an 11-member AVTI governing board that would be separate from the Department of Education and focus on post-secondary and adult vocational education in a more systematic way. The legislature also mandated that for increased financial efficiency and effectiveness in serving its community and responding to changing enrollment needs, each AVTI and community college located in the same community should develop a plan for cooperation. So you already start to see these early signals that ABTIs should be working with community colleges more and developing more plans for cooperation. In 1985, the legislature authorized any 2 or more school districts to combine to operate a joint vocational technical education district. And that regionalization would continue into the 1980s. You saw more and more of the ABTIs consolidating and forming more regional type schools rather than being just focused on an individual community. In 1990, ABTIs were renamed technical colleges. So ABTIs were really just predecessors to what came to be known as technical colleges. The change in name to technical colleges didn't change anything about their governance. They remained run by local school districts, and the employees of technical colleges remained employees of the local school districts. In 1991, the legislature passed the law to create the MNSCU system. And this would merge the technical colleges with the community colleges and the state universities. And that was to be done by July 1st, 1995. So you had about a 4-year roll up to it. And the biggest change here was that control of the technical colleges would then shift from local school districts to the state. All the technical college employees would no longer be school district employees, but they would become state employees. And the goals of the merger overall were removing some of that duplicative academic programming, some of that substantive overlap that had been a concern for decades prior. Also, the goals were allowing easier credit transfer between institutions to achieve economies of scale and get more efficiency in terms of administration and student services, and also to centralize funding to avoid favoritism and serve broader statewide interests. One of the main results for the technical colleges of the MNSCU merger was the creation of consolidated colleges. So as part of the merger, a number of technical colleges were consolidated with nearby or already co-located community colleges. And in the memo on page 6 to 7, there's a table that shows how community colleges merged into a single institution with technical colleges. The creation of consolidated colleges, the consolidated colleges didn't have a distinct mission. The legislature had said that the mission of technical colleges under the MNSCU system was to offer vocational training and education to prepare students for skilled occupations that do not require a baccalaureate degree. So if you were a consolidated college, then the legislature said that your role was to offer the same types of instructions, programs, certificates, diplomas, and degrees as the technical colleges and community colleges offer. So the story then from the proliferation of ABTIs in the 1960s to more regionalization of them, more consolidation of them, more systematization of them, more statewide planning involving ABTIs, really reached its culmination then with the MNSCU merger, where the technical institutes are brought into a larger statewide system that will, by its nature, cooperate with the system as a whole, with the post-secondary system as a whole. So you have the consolidation of technical colleges with community colleges, and they're all part of the same organization, the same governance structure as community colleges and state universities. Leading into, that sort of leads us into the state of career and technical education today. Vocational education is kind of an outdated term now. Career and technical education, or CTE, is the preferred term. So public post-secondary education today occurs at Minnesota State's 26 state colleges. Secondary students are able to access technical education at state colleges through post-secondary enrollment options, PSEO, which start as early as 10th grade for technical education courses. Minnesota State, the Minnesota State system, is the sole state agency authorized to receive federal funds under the Carl D. Perkins Vocational and Technical Education Act, which was reauthorized in 2018 and is referred to as Perkins 5. And Perkins 5 provides federal grant funds that are intended to increase access to high-quality CTE programs. Minnesota State administers Perkins 5 in coordination with the Minnesota Department of Education and designated local consortia. So they're partnerships of school districts and state colleges, of which there are 26 statewide. And this cooperative model is intended to align CTE at the secondary and post-secondary levels. Minnesota's total Perkins 5 grant award for fiscal year 2022 was $20,524,984.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. I think if you're okay waiting right there, I'm going to bring up the Minnesota Department of Education folks, and then after that, we'll open it up for some questions for all three of you. Next up, we're going to have the Minnesota Department of Education to discuss the existing workforce pathways. Now that we've gone where we've come from, now we're here where we are, and as well as the governor's proposals for expanding access to those pathways. With that, please state your name for the record and proceed.
Tyler Livingston, Educator Workforce Supervisor at Minnesota Department of Education.
Good morning. Sally Reynolds, Director of the Career and College Success Division at the Minnesota Department of Education.
Thank you. And then just make sure you bring your microphones close so we can all hear you and it's recorded. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to both chairs and members of the committee to receiving this presentation. Tyler and I will likely be going back and forward, but the first slide, current available programs, I don't need to read it to you, but these are the current grants that are available outside of the approved programs of PSEO, CTE approved programs, and others, dual credit in general, but the expanding concurrent enrollment exists now to encourage districts and schools, secondary schools, to offer concurrent enrollment programs with a focus specifically on expanding and working within the workforce needs of local entities. So partnership is encouraged. Expanding rigorous coursework also relates to AP, IB, and all PSEO that's offered within a school and outside of a school. And then statewide CTE programs, while they receive general ed funds and Perkins funds, we do not currently have any other incentive to expand those programs.
Chairs, members, my work in particular is focused on increasing and diversifying and retaining our educator, our teacher workforce. And I will make the connection to the CTE conversation here. But first with a bit of why. The educational research has been clear for several decades around the most important school-based factor influencing student outcomes and experiences is the quality of the teacher in the classroom. It's followed closely by the quality of the school leader or the principal. We've also, more recently in the last decade or so, learned about how teachers of color, American Indian teachers, have an outsized impact on students of color and American Indian students, as well as their white peers. So all students benefit when they have access to more racially and ethnically diverse educator workforce. Minnesota, along with our nation, is experiencing teacher shortages. Those shortages exist in geographic areas. They exist in specific subject areas, including special ed, including career and technical education, the subject of today's conversation, world languages as well. And our workforce does not represent the race and ethnicity of our student population. I believe the most recent figures, our teacher workforce is around 6% teachers of color, and our student population is closer to 37%. So what you'll see on the slide are some of Governor Walz's proposals to address the teacher shortages, whether it's geographic, subject area, or with race and ethnicity. Our Grow Your Own proposals expand the current Grow Your Own program focused on teacher diversity to include more pathways for both adults and student programs. So it includes 2+2 programs that I understand we'll hear more about shortly, as well as allowing, again, those funds to be used to support PSEO options for secondary students. You'll see another Grow Your Own program focused on shortage areas, so subject area shortage areas like our special ed teachers, our CTE teachers, and so forth, and another program focused on early childhood educators. Other programs addressing the shortage area include our Minnesota Indian Teacher Training Program. It's very much like a Grow Your Own approach. Mentoring is geared at retaining our educator workforce. Paid student teaching is seeking to address the reality that there is an internship period, if you will, in becoming a teacher that is currently an unpaid. In fact, you're actually paying tuition to participate during that internship piece, as well as support to address the costs of getting a teacher license.
Focusing more on the student pathways and creating interest with secondary students, we have the statewide CTE program. So most of the governor's proposals are to expand the good programs that we already have, that students are engaged in, that systems are created for. So statewide CTE programs, again, expanding access, student access, and resources for equipment, for training, for those special experiences such as internships that students may have in the field, with a focus on teacher preparation as well. Educator Career Pathway would be a new grant that is specific to engaging in recruitment and retaining student interest in becoming educators, and then supporting them through into post-secondary programs. The pilot to fully fund PSEO, again, is an opportunity to expand the PSEO program, but to engage those students who are not currently engaged in enrolling, and to remove barriers to districts, right? So that they don't feel that they're being penalized for having students having post-secondary opportunities. Expanding concurrent enrollment, again, a grant to really look at districts, creating programs and creating pathways and participating in pathways to engage students in becoming educators. The expanding rigorous coursework to increase that and continue that grant program that works to do within the school and outside of the school. Dual credit opportunities for students. Competency-based education, personalizing learning, and really getting at what students want to learn, and then creating those even individualized pathways for students. And then alignment of the youth apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship programs, essentially to ensure that students who are engaging in an apprenticeship in secondary can get credit towards the apprenticeship program that exists at the post-secondary. So that's managed through the Department of Industry and Labor. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I think we'll do your screens down to disconnect and bring Mr. Hopkins up to the table to join for questions from members on these two presentations. There's a lot of information there. Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll start at the back because that's where I'm at. Can you just explain just a little bit more about competency-based education? The reason I ask is almost 15 years ago, I suppose, I enrolled my kids in the Minnesota Virtual Academy. It was the second year they'd ever been in existence for various reasons. One was excelling and not getting support, and one was failing and not getting support. So in any case, that was a competency-based program, and I know what that is, but I'm not sure what you mean by competency-based education.
Whoever would like to answer that?
Thank you, Representative and Madam Chair. Competency-based education in the governor's proposal is looking at how to expand choice for students, looking outside of traditional seat-based classroom options, and really looking at what exists in the community, what exists within the school, what exists within the student's experience, and creating really individualized pathway that includes not only the standards and the content standards that are required for graduation, but also expanding it to some of what's referred to as soft skills. So students learn how to work within groups, they learn how to create organizational plans, to complete tasks. Any competency could be included within the standards, and they could be individualized to that student as well, or a group of students.
Representative O'Neill, follow up?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so that's completely different than the Minnesota Virtual Academy, because when they say competency-based, they mean that there's a competency that you have to achieve before you can move on. In other words, you have to achieve certain skills and certain knowledge base before you can go on to the next unit or the next lesson, and that's competency-based. So I've never heard of this kind of competency-based, so I appreciate you explaining that to me. Also, I'm gonna go to the previous slide, and you said you want a pilot to fully fund PSEO. I guess I don't exactly understand what that means either. Can you explain what fully funding PSEO means? Because I understand that, I know what PSEO is. My daughter did it later and went to St. Cloud State. And her funding followed her from the high school up to St. Cloud State. And that money paid for her program up there, which I know is also a big contention for high schools, that money is now leaving their district and going somewhere else. So can you just speak to what does that mean, and how do you backfill the high schools that are now losing that money to the Minn-State system typically that they're doing PSEO at?
If you can briefly answer that, and we got a few more members on the list, and then we're gonna go on with the presentation.
It is fairly involved, but the pilot program is to really explore how to expand PSEO options to students so that they all have access, that they all have the opportunity, if they want it, to take a PSEO course. The revenue piece, I don't know that I'm adequately able to explain that in a short period of time, but the idea of the pilot is to remove those barriers to the local districts to ensure that they have supports for students and that revenue is not reduced so that they can provide those additional supports.
Thank
That's
you.
the idea behind it.
Thank you. Representative Noor.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
6 more questions.
Just wanted to know a little bit about the demographic and the information about how many students are enrolled in CTE
We're paying double.
when it comes to secondary and post-secondary. How many students are enrolled in PSEO with the demographic breakdown and also separating from University of Minnesota and also Minn-State, because I assume the Department of Education has got that information. Likewise, I just wanted to know how we will incorporate the summer PSEO if we're gonna fully fund PSEO. So that's a huge question. We don't have a summer program. So students need to take advantage of PSEO. How do we fully fund PSEO and to be able to make sure that students across the board are taking advantage of PSEO? Thank you.
Thank you. Director Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's a lot of questions in there. I do not have the demographic breakdown. We do have it available, but I think we can ensure that information come to you this summer PSEO. So currently, there's an early middle college program for at-risk secondary students that does run during the summer, but PSEO in general, those courses aren't accessible during the summer. So I can't speak to that until that changes. But it's all really about recruitment and retention and support of any student taking any post-secondary option.
Thank you, Representative Noor. Quick follow-up.
Just also wanted to know how many students are also taking concurrent enrollment. So we have a clear picture of when we're talking about additional, programming that students are able to and eligible to take advantage of. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Noor. Director Reynolds.
Thank you. We'll include that. There is a rigorous course-taking report for FY21 that was just published, I believe, and is on the website, but we will be sure to get that information to you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Pryor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So fortunately, Representative Green did ask one of my questions, so I have one less then, but it's maybe a little bit involved also. So I'm just want to make sure that I'm following the information that you're presenting us, and I know that on page 2 on our handout, that bottom column says statewide CTE programs. There are no statewide CTE grants available right now, and then I make the assumption that later on, when we look at the governor's budget, that you are proposing, Madam Chair, that they are proposing different grants that would start funding these CTE programs that are not now available. And then I want to make sure I understand who these grants are for, who could access these grants. Is it the school districts, or is this different post-secondary options that would be able to use these grants that we're talking about later in your handout? So I guess to make sure I'm following you correctly, and what about the governor's proposal is, and then also just to find out more about the grants that you mentioned on page 5.
Director Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Representative Pryor. So the expand CTE, so CTE receives general ed funds and then the Perkins grants. The governor's proposal is to expand resources through the forms of grants to school districts, encouraging them to partner either through consortia or with local business and industry partners to come together to look at what are those areas and those needs for workforce in the local area and statewide to begin those conversations. So the grants would support that. They would also expand hiring teachers. Replacing equipment is a large ask, and really look at expanding into pathways that are needed and being able to look at the data to determine what are those pathways that are most beneficial to the local workforce needs, statewide workforce needs, and the students' interests.
Thank you, Director Reynolds. With that, I think we're going to move on to our next group of testifiers, which is, the Burnsville-Eagan-Savage School District, to discuss their pathway programs. With us today, we have Superintendent Battle. Welcome back to the committee. This is remote testimony, and please state your name for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am Dr. Teresa Battle, the proud superintendent of Burnsville-Eagan-Savage, District 191. Thank you for giving us a chance to talk about pathways in District 191. We are very proud of what we've built over the past few years and what we're continuing to build. We have provided you some more information about our district if you choose to learn more. Our district brochure, as well as our Wayfinder magazine that highlights our innovative programming. First, we are a pre-K-12 pathways district, so we not only have pathways at the high school level, but throughout our district. At the elementary level, we talk about sparking students' wonder, providing experiences where they can start to understand and imagine what's possible in their future. In middle school, it's about providing students the fuel they need to succeed, including academic skills, but also self-knowledge and social emotional development. And finally, in high school, students are ready to blaze their paths, following their passions and preparing for success in the future. At the simplest level, the Pathways is a series of courses that a student can take, help them follow their passion and prepare them for college, careers in college. Our course catalog isn't for the high school, isn't just organized by subject, but rather by 4 broad career fields and 14 pathways spread among those fields. So students can find courses based on their career interests. Even the structure is designed to get them to think long-term. And by looking at the pathway that includes their career interests, students find classes that make sense for them. If they follow the series of courses, they'll build the skills and knowledge they need to be successful and even earn college credit or professional certification without ever having to leave Burnsville High School. So, for example, a student interested in culinary arts or hospitality could look at the hospitality pathway to find classes like Chef 1, 2 and 3, as well as starting your own business, event management, and more. Our students can even earn the National Restaurant Association's Pro Start National Certificate of Achievement by the time they graduate. And so there are many specific ways students use the pathways to follow their interests and their passions. We have a core set of values in our pathways approach. First, future-focused mindset. Don't plan to graduate, but graduate with a plan. Removing barriers and providing opportunities for college credit and professional certification, and do it all through partnerships. We have over 200 partnerships for our Pathways program. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Kathy Funston, who is the 191 Director of Pathways and Partnerships, and she will give you more details. Thank you once again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Battle, and I think that phrase will be burned in my memory now. Don't plan to graduate, but graduate with a plan. Thank you very much. Next up is Dr. Kathy Funston. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Dr. Kathy Funston, and I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships and Pathways with the Burnsville-Eagan-Savage School District. College and career pathways at the high school level are created to positively impact the future employment needs of a community and to provide students with family-sustaining careers. We know this means some type of post-secondary education and/or training. But first, let's look at how pathways are created for high school students. After collaborating with district communities and gathering county and state economic development data, we look at the courses that are already offered in high schools to determine if there are existing courses we can use, if modifications of some courses are needed, or if new courses will be created. Many pathways rely heavily on career and technical education programs and a partnership with the district's Carl Perkins Consortium, which includes a post-secondary partner. Teachers need specific certifications and a group of skills that may not have been part of their teacher preparation programs. Business and industry partnerships, whether the partnership involves guest speakers, field trips, donations, paid internships, are really the magic that make learning relevant and enable students to answer that age-old question, what did you learn today? Or better yet, how will you use what you learned today? Burnsville is appreciative of our vested partners, like the City of Burnsville, Walser Automotive Group, the Greater Twin Cities United Way, Ebenezer Ridges, Bosch, and the Burnsville Chamber of Commerce, just to name a few of the over 200 business partnerships that we have developed and that Dr. Battle just mentioned. At Burnsville High School, we recruited teachers who had outside interest in certifications. An English teacher who was on the precipice of changing careers had recently earned his chef's certification. We invited him to start a Pro Start culinary program, and within 2 years, he was named Minnesota Pro Start Teacher of the Year and grew the pathway from 7 sections to 21 sections. The program includes ServSafe certification and an internship. Recently, he was working with students in the Farm to Table community garden and shared this story. One of the most amazing moments about our change to the pathway model was to hear students use the pathway language without any prompting. While working in the garden with students last spring, I heard students use pathway language when getting to know each other for the first time. I'm taking classes mostly in the Health and Human Services pathway, was an example. Our teacher also shared the pathway model leads to more robust hands-on experiences for students because of the community connections that are made. It's also powerful to see our students doing hands-on work that leads to fulfilling careers. An essential part of our pathway model development was to ensure that all students had the opportunity to earn industry credentials and/or early college credits. We currently offer more than 50 college credits through our pathways alone. In addition, our newest pathway is the early college pathway, in which students representative of our school demographics will earn their AA degree through Inver Hills Community College before they graduate from Burnsville High School and without having to leave the high school campus. Students told us that life balance was important, and although they want to earn the degree, it would be a trade-off on all of the opportunities like band, sports, and clubs that they wanted to participate in the last 2 years of high school. Finding qualified teachers, however, has been challenging since they need 18 hours of graduate credit in the content. Over 80% of teachers in Burnsville have advanced degrees, but they're typically in education, not in math or science or other specific content areas. All of our pathways are created by scaffolding courses beginning in 9th grade, so knowledge and skill builds towards early college credits, industry certifications, paid work experiences, and internships. An example is our education pathway. We suggest students consider taking electives like child psychology and development, preschool lab experience, psychology, social and family relations, multicultural education, and introduction to urban education reflective teaching. Burnsville is currently implementing a Minnesota Department of Education Grow Your Own Student Pathway grant. There are 16 students enrolled in the concurrent education pathway, with 12 being students of color or Native American. In addition to earning 6 college credits for their education courses through Metropolitan State University, who is our partner, students will also earn their Para-Pro certificate and can be hired the following year at any of our elementary or middle schools. Each student who enrolls in our partner's Urban Teacher Program will receive a $6,000 scholarship. Our early enrollment projections show that we have increased education pathway enrollment by 75%, representative of the demographics of the school for the 23-24 school year. We know that the cost of college is a barrier to many students, particularly first generation, Native American, multilingual learners, and students of color. This grant is a difference maker if we want more future teachers of color in Minnesota. A 2022 Burnsville graduate is pursuing a paramedic degree in licensure at South Central Community College in Mankato and is taking more than 18 college credits with him into the program from Burnsville High School. Even though the 2-year program is tough, our graduate is also training to be a firefighter as a part of a residential firefighter program with the Mankato Fire Department. Reflecting on the pathway opportunities at Burnsville High School, the student said, "I liked the ability to explore and see different options, to get more experience, or even ask others who have taken a class or guidance counselors to narrow things down. Classes like Healthcare Core Curriculum covered a lot of important concepts, while EMT class was more hands-on with learning about airways, cardiac issues, and patient assessment. I saved thousands of dollars being able to do those classes in high school." Finding ways to offer pathways in high school that allow students to explore their interests, gain knowledge and skills, make connections in the community, and earn early college credit is critical to meeting tomorrow's job market and ensuring that each student is future ready and community strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Funston. We have about 5 minutes for brief questions for Dr. Funston and Dr. Battle. I know there was a lot of information there, but I also know that they would be more than happy to talk with you offline. So is there any brief questions for their pathway programs? Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't have any questions, but I'm a proud representative of District 191, and I can just say firsthand that the students in our community benefit greatly from these programs. So as much as you are interested in these and have questions for our team and our district, I would highly encourage people to reach out. It's just such an honor to represent this district, and I thank our leaders for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. She had mentioned the difficulty teachers are having in attaining a master's degree so they can do CIS, and because they don't have subject content expertise. It's in education, that's what their masters are in. And I know that at one point we actually had funding to support that, and I'm wondering if that funding, they've utilized it, if there was enough to help bridge that gap, because the Higher Learning Commission basically said you cannot do CIS unless you have a subject area expertise and a master's degree in it. So I'm wondering, is that being utilized, and do we need more funding in that area?
Dr. Battle or Dr. Funstead, if you have an answer to that, I think they're talking about the 18-plus credit program through Northland, but.
Thank you for that question, Madam Chair, members of the committee. CIS is a University of Minnesota college in the schools. The requirement to have additional education in the content area, Dr. Funson can give you more details about that.
Dr. Funston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The 18 hours refers to being able to teach a concurrent course within the high school taught by the high school staff. So although many of our high school teachers have master's degrees and plus, they have master's degrees or specialist degrees in education. It's not in the content specific. So this requirement requires our teachers to earn 18 postgraduate credits in the content area to be able to teach a college class in the high school setting. For many of our teachers, they're already at the top of their salary range, and there's really no incentive for them to go back to school and pick up the additional requirements needed to be able to teach these classes, thus creating barriers for our students to take courses, college courses in the high school and in that setting where in many cases, students are more successful taking college level classes in the high school setting than having to leave their high school campuses and go to a college campus to receive those services.
Thank you. Representative O'Neill, did that answer your question, or?
No, I mean, I knew all of that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
The question was, we used to have funding to help the teachers bridge that gap and get those credits that they need in order to be able to teach CIS. I don't know if that funding still exists, and if it doesn't, are we gonna look at doing that? And if it does exist, is it enough? I guess
Yeah.
that was really the question.
Thank you. Thank you, and well, we're gonna move on, but I think we can get that answer offline. With that, I'm going to turn the gavel back over to Chair Lowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this point, I'd like to call up three members of the Minnesota Chamber, Lauren Schothorst, Christy Jeck, and Nort Johnson. If you'd please come up and one by one identify yourself for the record, and then welcome to the committee and present your ideas. So I don't know who wants to go first, but we'll let you decide.
Good morning, Mr. and Madam Chair and members of the committees. My name is Lauren Schothorst, and I'm the Director of Education and Workforce Development Policy for the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. As you are aware, the Chamber's top strategy for confronting our state's long-term workforce readiness demands starts by aligning our state's K-12 education, post-secondary, and workforce systems with economic data and local needs. I'm so pleased to be here today to showcase how our foundation's Center for Workforce Solutions is already bringing this strategy to life. This is a Minnesota business-led initiative. Our business education networks, or BENs as we call them, connect businesses and local chambers with students, educators, workforce training programs, and post-secondary providers, so students are aware of career opportunities in their communities and the coursework and training required for those jobs. At the Chamber, we believe that students are better prepared for their futures when meaningful career connections are made during their school years. Career exploration, hands-on training opportunity, employer partnerships, work-based learning, dual credit options for students, all should be foundational components of the K-12 system. This requires that the K-12 education system is intentionally fostering a future-ready, and we've heard this term once before today, and career pathways approach to their programming. As part of that effort, school leaders should have ongoing engagement with businesses in their area to maintain an understanding of current and future employment needs in order to better support both teachers and students. Yes, we think teachers should have professional development support throughout their careers, and including externships in businesses. Within the K-12 system, when we talk about future readiness, this is both practically and academically. So students graduate with the tools they need to succeed in the state's economy, either directly into the workforce through better established pathways or ones that connect directly with post-secondary opportunities. So with that, I'm excited to turn this over to Krista Jack with the Lakeville Area Chamber and Nort Johnson with the Faribault Area Chamber to share the great work they're doing in their communities in furtherance of these objectives. some of the challenges they faced along the way, and we hope you'll consider building on this experience as you seek to modernize our education policy and financing mechanisms in Minnesota. Thank you.
Welcome to the committee, whoever wants to come next, and then if they would identify themselves for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee. My name is Krista Jeck. I am the president of the Lakeville Chamber of Commerce. I'm also a graduate of Burnsville High School in 1993, so that was nice to see them here as well. So what I am going to talk to you about today, and I think you received some slides earlier about some of the efforts that we do in Lakeville in this area. Oh, are they? While they're pulling that up, I will tell you, oh, perfect. One of the first slides that we will see is, we call it our three-legged stool. And it is the Chamber, Lakeville Area Schools, and the City of Lakeville. And those three entities have been very important to our success. Those three entities have been in on this initiative from day one and have all understood the importance of growing our next generation of leaders and our next generation of workforce and giving them every opportunity available. So the three entities work well together. One of the first slides that you will have seen is our program donors. And these are the small businesses in Lakeville who have given us their time, their talent, and their treasure day after day for us to be able to provide the opportunities that we're going to talk about for these students. And it's so important to note that these businesses, they are up against so many challenges, as we all know. They're up against workforce challenges. They're up against supply chain challenges. They're up against increased costs, all of these things. And yet every time we go to them and every time we say we want to provide these opportunities, they show up for us every single day. And we could not do this without them. And I would be remiss without thanking them and, for all that they do for us. And they want to know, they're passionate. They know that they are one of the best kept secrets out there. They know that if they can get students inside their four walls and see the opportunities available and see the careers and the career pathways available to them in these amazing careers, that they will get excited about that. And so Engineered for Speed is one of the things, and we'll kind of go through it from elementary on up. So Engineered for Speed is a program that every fifth grader in Lakeville goes through right now. And so there are, we call them guest instructors from QA1 Automotive who come out and they teach the students how to use, how their science that they're learning and their science standards in school translate to actually building derby cars and how they work and how fast they go on the track. So it's showing them those real world applications of what they are learning in school. And so they're not only talking about what they do, but why they're doing it and why it makes sense and why it will be applicable in the real world in that. The next slide we have is talking about our Wings Reality Fair. And you know what, I'm sorry, I forgot, there's the Treats, Trades, and Tours. This is really exciting. We have worked with some middle school clubs, and what they've been able to do is we've taken them on and doing just what it says, Treats, Trades, and Tours. We give them treats, we put them on a bus, we tour them around schools. They get to learn about different careers. We've done some project-based learning. We've had some speakers come in. So they're getting that exposure in middle school before they're starting to take some of those high school electives and high school courses, make those decisions, get them excited about some of those different opportunities that are available to them, so when they go to register, they have that opportunity. We're hearing a lot now from some of our juniors and seniors who say, oh, I would have loved to do that, but they're too late in the process. They haven't taken the classes to get them some opportunities. So a very exciting program on that. The Wings Financial Reality Fair is just that. We brought in a group of middle school students in the summer, and they got to go through, and they were told, this is your scenario. You're married, you have X number of kids, this is the job you have, and now it is your job to go out and buy a house, buy a car, pay your utilities, do all of those things. And so they had to go around. And so naturally, as you would anticipate middle schoolers to do, they would go and they would buy the biggest house possible. And then they'd go and do the other things and realize, okay, I can't have the biggest house. And they'd have to go back once they did their budget and go, okay, I guess I need maybe a starter house. I will tell you that their biggest aha moment was childcare. They could not believe how much their parents paid for childcare. So that was a big, exciting thing for them to realize. So we were kind of excited to see that. But again, we want them to have those skills. We're hearing that from employers over and over again, that our children are not coming out prepared to be an adult. They don't understand some of those basic needs that they are going to have that autonomy when they are out on their own. And so we're trying to give them some of those tools as they're learning in there. Our next program, Future 101. So this is geared towards families in 8th through 12th grade. And what we do is we bring them in on for 2 hours on an evening, and we let them them go to a series of breakouts that talk to them about the different opportunities. They can hear from the deans at their high school about how to maximize their high school experience as they prepare to launch. They're able to go and listen to two-year colleges, four-year public, four-year private. They're able to hear about financing about all of those options. They're able to hear about in-demand careers that are available, military opportunities, all of those things. They learn about how to prepare for tests. So all of those things that are going to help make their career in high school successful, and then it's going to help them successfully launch for post-high school on that program. The next thing that we do is a Future You mentorship program. We did this for the first time last year, and it was a pilot program for us, and we took some at-risk students, and we brought in some mentors. One of them was one of our police officers in town, and then some of our local businesses came in. And these, again, these professionals donated 8 weeks of their time, 3 hours every single week to be with the students. They went on tours, they heard from speakers, they went out to DCTC, they did some financial literacy training, and really what they did is spent time with them. They spent time with them and let them know, because one thing that we've heard from the educators and the social workers who work with these students is they don't see a future past tomorrow. They don't understand how their future can be bright. And so what we did is we said, your future is bright, we believe in you, here's the opportunities available, here's how we can come alongside of you. One of the neatest things about this experience for these students was at the very end, we did a small little ceremony. It was to give them a certificate of completion. And we had our local mayor come and speak to them. We had some members of city council and school board. These students were floored. They could not believe that the mayor would actually come out, spend time, talk to them, shake their hand. And it was so neat to see these people all show up for these students in this room and show them how special they were. And we heard the feedback. We had a student in there who they said at the beginning they weren't sure if he would make it through the whole program. Not only did he make it through the program, he stood up and spoke at the end of how important it was to him, how much it meant to him, and actually one of the tours we had taken him on during that, he actually took it upon himself, went back to that company and got a job there this summer. Another student got the certificate and told their mentor, wow, I didn't, this is really cool. I didn't know what kind of a job I could get. I think I actually could get a better job than I was thinking this summer because I have this. It's these little things that they see, and that when they see that we can see them, it was so important. It was so powerful for us. The next thing is our CNA program, Certified Nursing Assistant Program. It's again a fairly new program here in Lakeville that we're working on, and we're excited to see it grow. And again, local business partners who we said these students need to come out, they need to be able to do their clinicals with you. Can you do it? Will you donate your time, your facilities, your staff to help? Absolutely. How can we help? We're on board. And so now we have students out doing that in that area. We don't have concurrent enrollment for this yet. It's a little bit too new. We are hoping, the schools are hoping that they will be able to do concurrent enrollment for this soon, hoping that this program will continue to grow. And if you want, there's a really cool video out there that Lakeville area schools did where these students are interviewing their patients. And so it's a fun little video. You can go and check out and see a little bit about the program. The next one is our YST program. YST is, that is a grant available through the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry. Lakeville Area Schools was able to attain that grant based on their partnership with the Chamber and with our workforce development group. And so what we do is we have students that are going through, they're getting paid work experience, they're getting industry certification and on-the-job training on that. It's very important again to note that these students, it is required that you pay these students for that, and it's required not only do you pay these students, but you have to work within their schedule. So as a business, if you're coming on board to be one of the companies they work at, you may have a student for a couple hours in the morning or a couple hours in the afternoon or split, but you have to be able to work in a student's schedule and you have to be able to pay them. And again, these employers every single time have said, yes, how can we help? Oh, do you need us to take an extra child? Absolutely. They want them to have this experience. They're excited. And what's really neat about this program is not only is this growing a pipeline and showing these students have an aptitude and an interest in this, this is actually creating an immediate workforce solution. Many of these students are staying on at these companies. They are working past their semester as employees. They're coming back during the summer if they've gone off to school. So they are filling an immediate workforce need through this program. And again, the funding has run out for that for us, but we do continue to administer the program through the district and the chamber right now. Our Made in Lakeville teacher tour is, again, we put teachers on a bus and we said, and I'm married to a teacher and I love teachers, but teachers spend a lot of time inside the four walls of their school. And we've said if we can get them out and we can see what's happening in these businesses and these great careers, and teachers love to learn. And that's exactly what happened. We got them on a bus and we took them around and we said, Lakeville has one of the largest industrial parks in the state of Minnesota. Here's what's made here. Here's what we make here. Here's what we make here. And then we took them inside businesses and showed them around and said, and these are the careers that are available, and had some great conversations on that. And I gotta tell you, we are hearing from teachers left and right now. I want to get my students out here. How do we get my students out here? We are actually trying to solve an issue right now. It's a good problem to have. We have 2 teachers who want to bring an entire 8th grade of 200 students out on tours. And we're trying to figure out now how we're going to do that, how we're going to make that happen. But they're getting excited because they see the opportunities for their kids, and they see how their kids can be engaged and have exciting things happen for them in that one. And then speakers. We do a lot in classroom speakers where we bring speakers from different industries. We look at that career wheel, all 6 colors, and we have lots of teachers right now who take us up on that, of having different teachers rotated in every week or every month, talking about their career, not just what they do every day. And students have told us that. We've done focus groups with students who say, don't just give us the rainbows and unicorns. We want to know kind of the down and dirty. Tell us the day-to-day of your job. Tell us why you like it. Tell us why you hate it. And so we really, we have them do that. We have them tell them, these are the qualities that I have that make me good at this job or why I enjoy it, so that our students can start to see themselves in those people and start to decide, okay, maybe that's me. Maybe that could be a career path that I would love. So we're doing a lot of that with our students. So kind of our last is, so aside from the YST grant where we got the $90,000 awarded, we have invested $150,000, and that's all been private investments. That's all been from those donors that you saw on that first slide. They have all given of their money. They've a lot of times given it to us when we said, we don't exactly know where we're going with this, but do you trust us? And they said, yes, we do. We believe in what you're doing. We believe how important this is. So, I mean, we've donated equipment to schools. We've done scholarships. We're looking at getting even into some of our private schools and helping them. You can see with us, it's a lot of grassroots efforts. It's a lot of people just saying, let's try some different things. Let's get some exposure. Let's just kind of all get together and talk and see what each other does and see where we grow from that. And so again, why do we do this? Why, we want to make sure that they know that there are choices, that it does not have to be one size fits all. I do mentoring with some of our students, and our students have the impression that it's one size fits all, that there's one way they're supposed to go. And so we need to show them that there are so many options for success, and that is our passion of showing them that every one of them has a bright future, and we need every one of them using whatever talent they have to make this great. And so again, we just, this is really great for us. We would love to see this grow. We can't wait to see what we have next on the horizon. And so again, it's a huge thank you on our part to the city of Lakeville, to Lakeville schools, and to our business community for making this happen. And I thank all of you for the opportunity to talk about it today. We love to share our story. So thank you for the opportunity.
President Johnson, you're up, and then we'll open it up for questions after your presentation. Welcome to the committee.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Nort, that's N-O-R-T Johnson. I'm the president and CEO of the Fairville Chamber of Commerce and Tourism. I'm a product of Worthington Community College. I think it may have been Worthington Junior College back in the day when I went, and also Mankato State. I'm going to share our story about how our Chamber of Commerce became involved in trying to make some impacts in Fairville Public Schools and South Central College in Fairville. So while it's not quite as detailed as Chris's great story and everything they have going on there, it gives you a little peek inside of what we do at a Chamber of Commerce in order to have impact on our communities. So our Chamber of Commerce created a vision task force 5.5 years ago and decided that there were important items in the community that we should try to impact. And we actually started with a list of 56 things that came from the city's visioning process, and narrowed that down to 12 items by our board of directors and handed those off to a vision task force. And that group prioritized important matters in Fairville that the business community should get involved with. And I'm happy to say the #1 priority of the Fairville Chamber of Commerce is excellence in education. That's followed by housing, leadership collaboration, downtown and community space support, and then daycare and early childhood education are our 5 priorities outside of the normal course of chamber work that we're having an impact on right now. So our Excellence in Education Committee, not having anybody from the education system on board, decided before we approached and got involved with the education system, we should try to understand what it means for us as a business community. So we created our own 7-point definition. What is excellence in education? And those 7 items: safety, security, and those are 2 different things; pathways to success for all students; inclusion; a continuous improvement and cultural excellence process within the school district; a strategic planning initiative that's inclusive. I'm talking custodians and bus drivers, educators, administration, and the community involved in this process, as well as partnering with community resources. So the next steps for us as we got engaged with the school district was identifying gaps in what we consider to be our number 1 project, which was the Pathways to Success for All Students point of our definition. So we began studying the P-TECH model. If you're not familiar with that, that's an IBM-supported model where there's a school that a student graduates with his diploma, his or her diploma, his or her associate's degree, and also real-world experience and connections to a job. In its purest form, that model calls for another school. That's separate from the school system. Well, in Faribault, if you're not familiar, our high school is right across the parking lot from South Central College. And with enrollment, we all know what enrollment statistics look like right now. The last thing we needed was to put another school in Faribault. So we were able to create a fantastic partnership around this idea that we could do better with our local community college or tech college and the public school system. So we brought them together at the table. You're going to hear from Marcia Danielson later on. Marcia was with South Central College at that time and took the lead for that organization, and then Superintendent Sesker and Ryan Kremenga, our curriculum director at Faribault Public Schools at the time, took the lead on that. We began talking about pathways, ensuring that every student graduated with a path to work. We had the high school actually name the program. Then the students came up with H2C, high school to college and career. So that's what we have going on in Faribault. So now with limited resources, we had to decide what were we going to do first, because importantly, we need a lot of trades jobs filled in Faribault. The table was, it was a little bit awkward because we had manufacturing and industry at the table along with healthcare. And the group concluded that the most important pathway for us to start with was health sciences. For those that aren't aware, I'm guessing you are, but the number 1 open position in 5 of the 6 regions of Minnesota for workforce needs, they're all in healthcare. And it's number 2 in the 6th region. So we started with healthcare. And this is the best part of my story today. So in our chamber office, on one side of the room, we've got a big conference room, by the way. We had Mayo Health Systems, Alina Health Systems, Ritchie Eye Clinic, Southern Heights Dental, Health Finders, and Monarch. Monarch is a group that manages long-term care facilities. And on the other side of the room, we had executive and executive, administrative, and curriculum directors from South Central College and Faribault Public Schools. And they absorbed everything that the healthcare industry had to share with them about what they could deliver in new curriculum for their needs, to meet their needs. And it was wonderful because we were able to talk about things like not just medical terminology and other phlebotomy points, but also talked about phone etiquette at work, showing up on time, all these other pieces that industry brought into the conversation that our schools are working hard to weave into that curriculum, those important points. So that H2C partnership continues. Those classes, by the way, started 2.5 years ago. We had 66 students enrolled in those pathways. The work that Dr. Danielson and her team did at South Central College made it possible for students in these years, starting in 9th or 10th grade, to get up to 36 college credits paid for in high school. So as this progresses, a student could start in 9th or 10th grade, and when they graduate high school, take 1 semester across the parking lot and be a licensed practical nurse. I mean, that's a heck of a nice job for an 18-year-old, right? So those pathways, again, in health science is very important, and those have started. This semester, our next batch of pathway classes have started, and those are mechanical, engineering, and construction trades. So a year and a half ago, when these were starting to be put together, it was the same story, kind of a lather, rinse, repeat, except instead of Mayo and Alina, we had MRG manufacturing, Metcon construction, K&G manufacturing. Honestly, there were 23 different businesses in the room. We had to get it bigger. We had to go out to the conference room at the college. And those instructors took in the information that they needed to help start creating these MEC pathways. And those just started this semester. There's a piece of Snap-on curriculum that our students are working on right now. It's a set of measuring tools. There's 6 different drawers in this piece of equipment. A student can walk away with 6 different accreditations, 1 certificate for each drawer of proficiency that employers recognize. I know my time is limited, and like Krista, we both have a lot more to share about our stories. I think importantly, we help assist on all of these projects with a very meaningful career expo that we've created with experiential work for students, along with the My Stories area where professionals come in and share their stories with the students in an intimate setting at a table. How did I get where I'm at? Those things we're finding are important. So the work that we're doing to run our way through, oh yeah, thanks for that. Importantly, thank you, Lauren. One of the pieces before we could get these pathway classes started in Fairville Public Schools was they only had a 6-period class day. And so there just wasn't time for meaningful extra classes. And we had to go out to a levy for that. And our Vision Task Force and Chamber led that effort, and the community stepped up understanding how important this was, and they're funding that extra period in the class day. So that's how we were able to add the capacity, was industry through the chamber getting involved with making sure we had that. Thanks. So I'll finish just by saying, importantly, organizing resources to accomplish goals, that's what our chamber does in our community. And too often we overlook the opportunities to utilize or mobilize existing resources in favor of a shiny new thought or program. As an example, a new P-Tech school in Fairville just would have been devastating for our public schools and for South Central College. So examining what we had, bringing local resources to the table, both intellectual and financial, we were able to accomplish our goal of getting meaningful career pathway classes into Fairville Public Schools. So with that, I'll say thank you again for your time.
Thank you. I have 2 members who have questions, and then we're going to move to the next presenters. So if those questions could be rather focused. Representative Sensor-Mura was first on the list.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. When you all were talking, I was actually reminded of an experience I had in 5th grade. So I went to Minneapolis Public School. I went to Marcy Open School, which is in Representative Norris district, and we had a program in 5th grade where we would go to the downtown Hyatt in Minneapolis, and you would get to choose a job for a day. And before you go, you would kind of like rank your jobs. And I remember that I had ranked wanting to be a server because someone who had gone the year before told me that if you were a server, you got to get tips. So I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. And then, and then I got my assignment, and I had gotten that I was shadowing the president of the hotel for a day, which was not something that I had put down. And I remember there was a boy in my class who said to me, oh, we should trade jobs because you got my job and I got your job, because he was a server and I had wanted to be a server, and I was going to shadow the president and he wanted to shadow the president. And I feel like we tried to get the teacher to change it, but they didn't. And, and I went, and the president was not someone that looked like me, right? But I was able to see myself in a position of power. I didn't become a hotel president, but now I'm here with you all in some position of power. And so I guess I'm thinking about, a teacher saw something, or an adult saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, kind of pushed me into an opportunity or position that I probably wouldn't have seen myself in. And you all talked about kind of this one size fits all, how to push students outside of that. And I guess I'm wondering how you can talk about how do we do that when we also know that one size fits all can be dictated by things like economic status, race, gender. I think we had a conversation in this committee last week thinking about, how does identity play into what careers students want to do, and how can we open up more opportunities for students? How can we open up opportunities where, for example, female students might see themselves in the automotive or mechanic, or male students might see themselves in healthcare, professions and pathways. So if you all can speak to how you do that with your programs or how you think about that, thank you.
I don't know who wishes to respond, but they may want to identify themselves before they do.
Identify yourself. Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can do that. Sure. Krista, Jack, I respond to that. And yes, we look at that. And I think what we're trying to look at, and we're still in the beginning stages of some of that, is focusing more on that child's interests and their passion. And that's what you should be looking at is you have a skill set and you have something that drives you. It's funny. We're just talking about this, and we'll see if it comes to fruition. Because I, at 47, am learning this. It's called Working Genius. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it, but it's basically talking about what fuels you and what are your working geniuses and what are the things that frustrate you and how does that tie into what makes you good at what you do or wanting to do what you do. And we're actually talking about that right now and how do we get students, because as I'm learning it at 47 years old and thinking, geez, I wish I would have known this 25 years ago, right? How do we get students to understand that more, that they're making decisions not so much based on physical things that they see, but they start to understand who they are as a person and then how that ties into the career that they want to have. That it really, you're limited only by your imagination and your interest and your passion. And we know that we've proven in Lakeville that there's virtually no one. If a child came to us and said, "I've got this passion, I don't know how to do it. I don't know that I fit into it. It doesn't seem like me." That we'd say, okay, we'll figure out a way. We'll figure out a way for you to learn this and talk to someone and see if this is you. And so I think that's what we really try and focus on more is what is it that you love to do? What fuels you? And what are your talents? And there are so many things available in that. And that's, I think, where we may be focused more on that is looking at that. And again, for us, some of it is still new. We're still learning of, okay, how is that another gap we now need to start looking at for our students and saying that.
Nort Johnson. In Faribault, for those that maybe weren't aware, our demographics in the school system right now, we're quickly approaching a third black, a third brown, and a third white. So by default, almost, we have access for everybody for these programs around that. I think I'll speak briefly to intentionality around inclusion because that's what it takes. And some of the things that are happening now, one really interesting thing, I think everybody here will appreciate hearing this. So we have a significant refugee population in Faribault. And of course, doing everything that you can from the community, the city, the school district to do our best to be inclusive. Faribault always has been. And one of the things that everybody was doing, we were sending home with students translated into Somali notices, newsletters, et cetera. And then we quickly found out about 5% of that adult population actually could read their own language. So what we found out, in fact, actually Chamber of Commerce won an award from the Preservation Alliance for inclusivity. We discovered just from the communication perspective what we had to do. It had to be knock on doors, talk to people and spread the word in that way. One of the other things that is happening right now around working on inclusivity and access, of course, language is a big thing. And just this last week, we brought our first English classes to the workplace at TriStar in Faribault. And what we're doing is we're doing it at shift overlaps so that workers are able to access English classes either at the end of their shift or at the beginning of their shift. My preference is at the beginning of the shift because they can practice in the workplace with people, but we've got that going on right now. Faribault Foods actually is just signing on to that program as well. So that, and we work toward having mentors that are culturally appropriate, but not exclusively. We also want to make sure that the interactions, cross-cultural, become normal. I mean, really, isn't that what everybody wants to feel in their life, is that diversity is normal? So that's one of the ways that we talk about it in our office and in our meetings, is we're working at normalizing the way our community looks and the way we interact together. So.
Members were pressed for time, so I'm going to go to Representative McDonald, and I know he will be brief as usual and to the point.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, as usual, I will be brief. Well, as a active member of the Chamber for 25 years and a former president, of the Chamber of Delano, I tell you, it is very impressive, your programs, both of you. And I can't wait to bring this back to Delano and other areas of my district, other cities. But a question for you regarding this anyway, kudos. And do you come out to chambers and talk to them as well? Perhaps we can talk offline. Kids and adults kind of want to know when you bring them around to the different careers and when you have people come in and speak to the schools, how much they can make. So it's kind of the white elephant. You're not really supposed to talk about money, but kids want to know that. And it's kind of exciting, especially the trades, when you can have an 18-month certification for electrical or plumbing and make $80,000 in 2 years, or start out at $60,000. So those are exciting numbers, and it certainly excites me as a 56-year-old, let alone a kid. Do you speak to, is that something that you include in your presentation to these children?
I'm not sure which one's going to present.
Would you like to go
because I
first?
can't see all three of them.
You go first this time.
Nort Johnson. Nothing is off limits in the conversations, and kids are not shy to ask. I will tell you that right now. So in the My Story spaces, that happens. We don't publish anything. We don't put those out there. But both at the career fair and in the My Stories areas, those conversations do take place.
All right, thank you all. And our next presenters will be President Olson from Winona State University and President Danielson from Minnesota State College Southeast. President Olson, welcome to the committee, and before you identify yourself, I want to thank you again for co-chairing the committee that set up the Winona mini session in 2019 on October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So with that, please identify yourself and begin your presentation.
Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, I'm Scott Olson. I'm the president of Winona State University. We started today talking about the background of vocational technical education in Minnesota. And I think I must have been one of the first people to pay at Hennepin Tech to take a class back in 1977, because I would have been one of the first ones. And the mini session, we heard testimony from local employers who said they're not able to fill the great jobs that we have in southeastern Minnesota with the workforce they have, and that not all of those jobs require a four-year college degree. We also heard from superintendents who said they're unable to hire a sufficient supply of career and technical ed teachers. So the need for career and technical ed teachers in the schools is great, and as Chair Pawlowski said earlier, we share that vision that every high school grad would at least have the opportunity to have job employable skills when they graduate. So this program, which we have thanks to your service to Minnesota, thanks to you doing this amazing joint session, but thanks to your bipartisan support of the career and technical education program we're going to talk about. Its goal is to sort of take on one aspect of that, and that's to improve the pipeline of career and technical education teachers in Minnesota school districts by creating a comprehensive and integrated educational plan that blends technical skill training at the technical college in Winona with standard educational practices that get you licensed as a teacher. And so with your indulgence, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn it over to President Danielson, who can talk about some of the aspects of the program.
And she's going to be remote, so she'll be coming online. President Danielson, welcome to the committee, and please identify yourself for the record. I think she's coming online.
Thank you, Chair Pawlowski. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Marcia Danielson, President at Minnesota State College Southeast, a comprehensive community and technical college located in Winona and Red Wing. Our career tech ed program areas that we are focusing on with this program in the fall of 2023 include construction, advanced manufacturing, and business education. Under discussion, there are a number that are moving through the approval process, which include manufacturing engineering technology, machine tool, electrical engineering, welding, and transportation. So how it will work, whether it be construction or advanced manufacturing or business education, is that each of the students will begin either in an existing or a new Associate of Applied Science program, and then they will proceed to Winona State University to the teacher tech portion of the program. We know that there are many different individuals that might be attracted to this program. There might be adults who had completed military service, those who might be a manufacturing professional in mid-career. It may even be adults who are teachers that might be interested in upskilling in the trades and changing mid-career and continuing being a teacher. High school students will certainly be involved. College students that may want to transition and specialize in career tech ed, teacher education programs, or college students that may want to transition. So there's a lot of opportunity on who may be interested in this program. What really makes this program unique is that it's a partnership between a 2- and 4-year institution of higher education. They start out, again, as I said, with the Associate of Applied Science and move to that teacher prep portion. But the hands-on component really is what sets this apart. There will be co-teaching components where we'll help teachers learn those technology skills. There will be hands-on opportunities with advisory committees and student organizations, and also mentorship, not only with the 2-year instructors in the trades, but also with industry representatives. So it's very much an opportunity for those students who are interested to get even that industry work experience. So I'm going to turn it over to Professor Johnson, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about the specifics of the program.
Welcome to the committee, and please identify yourself for the record.
I'm Pete Johnson, a professor assistant professor at Winona State University, and was hired to create the classes and work with the tech schools in the state to get everything in alignment for approval to be a teacher. It's been an exciting process. I really enjoy working with the tech schools. I've long considered this route a great option for teacher prep. I've been in Minnesota for 10 years, and it took a long time to get a CTE license because of some of these pieces that were missing. Some of you guys brought up earlier, it isn't a part of a traditional teacher prep program because there's a lot of extra things that are needed. And so they brought me into, we created the CTE core skills teachers class that are required by state legislator. We got those created and they're waiting for approval. One of the biggest pieces that's different is the skills aspect. To be a CTE teacher, you need to have skills in the industry. To be a tech ed teacher, you don't. And so one of the classes and stuff are all lined up to prepare future teachers for all the ins and outs of Perkins and the requirements for that. One of the requirements is being skilled in that trade and having work experience. So we created a program where they get, they'll get all the classes they need to get that background information, plus they will get work experience on their way out. So we've got tons of excitement. You know, Southeast has been great, and the rumors are going around because I've been getting calls from other tech schools and community college that want to get involved. We've got students calling because they're already on a timeline for licensure, and it's almost trying to slow some of them down so that we can get all the details worked out. And then that's really what we've been doing, partnering together.
President Olson, are we back with you?
Time being what it is, Chair Pawlowski, we have concluded the formal part of our presentation, so wherever you would like to go next is up to the chairs.
President Olson, we always appreciate when higher ed can be brief. So any questions from the committee? Seeing none, then I'm going to turn it back over to Representative Yuki.
I just want to thank everybody for being here today and really being attentive listeners. It's great to see people soaking in the information, which was a lot. Know that all our testifiers are more than willing to meet with you offline any of this sparked an idea for you, and looking forward to working with Chair Pulowski on the work we can do together, trying to bridge this gap.
Members, we have a unique opportunity. We have a question. Yes.
Just very quickly, Representative Knudsen, I believe you have a guest.
Sure, I'll always take it. Emma, can you stand up? I have my middle daughter with me for yesterday and today. This is Emma.
Is she in the skill development program for state legislators? So, members, I want to thank particularly President Olson for coming today, and I apologize for the brevity, but that's just the way it goes. We have an opportunity this session to relink our 2-year community colleges and tech colleges with our school systems, and I think we should take that opportunity. We're not going to finish it this session, but we should at least start. And we've seen communities that are doing it. This should be an opportunity in every community in the state for every high school student. Representative McDowell.
Well, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to mention that, did you see the news recently that Winona was named one of the top small towns in the United States of America? 5th top. And of course, it's because of good leadership at the top.
I believe it's number 5 of the cutest towns in the country, but we'll take it. With that, members, meeting is adjourned.